Welcome, I'm Deborah and it's good to have you with me. Here we do counseling coaching. The two have to go together in some instances. Today I am speaking about the 3 types of borderline personality disorder, or otherwise known as emotional dysregulation disorder. It lives on a spectrum, if that makes sense, and it is so terribly misunderstood. It's just phenomenally misunderstood. To clear up some of the grossly ignorant vitriol that go on forever, I thought it's better if somebody is equipped with knowledge before you hand out major criticism on people. I don't think it helps. You know, today the world is at war. I mean, it's in a terrible state. And I think it is not helpful for everybody to be attacking everybody else. I think that's really a very difficult way for someone to live within their own minds. So when we come to borderline, I've put it just into 3 groups. There are more, but I've put it into 3 groups. I'm going to read you what I've written. So here we have group 1. The child grows up in a stable home. They aren't moved from house to house to house. So they basically grow up in the same home. Their home remains a constant. A bed that is theirs, they know is always there in their home. 2 parents, even if they're hopeless parents, they have those. They are clothed and fed, and they have a feeling of being, this is a constant. I know I'm going to get food. I know I will be clothed. I know I'm housed. I know I have 2 parents, even though there's massive disruptions at home, which is where the trauma and the neglect come in. So a child like this would be confused and as to their sense of self, because children are wired for attachment, which I've told you, people are. So if you grow up in a home where neglect and abuse, or your parents going at each other all the time, is your normal, then your constant bed and your home doesn't exactly make for you to be that happy. But still, you can develop a good sense of self and be on the lower end of the BPD spectrum. So why BPD? Because of neglect, trauma and abuse with their parents towards the child. So this type of BPD can be less severe due to there being some balance in their lives. Now we go to number 2. The child grows up in foster homes, never staying in one place for a very long period of time at all. There's no bedroom or bed that's a constant, that's theirs, because they're in different homes. Being fed and clothed is not a definite. It depends. And if they are fed and clothed, it often comes from the charity shop or the church, which leads to shame and humiliation when they go to school and their friends are nicely dressed. You get what I mean? If you've experienced this. There are no parents to speak of. They're in foster homes. They are shoved from pillar to post because that's basically the way the system works. This is a severe. I think this is the more severe type of BPD, although I can't make that as a statement. This is just my opinion. This child, you think of Oliver Twist. A child like this grows up in fear, constant fear. And I don't belong. Where do I belong? And then who am I? That no sense of self that we talk about with borderline means exactly that. I don't know who I am. Why? Because I had no role models. And then I was in this place, and then I was in that place, and then I was in that place. So who the hell am I? Where do I belong? Do I even belong? And so these children grow up with a sense of no sense of self, no sense of belonging, and afraid. And this person, this type of person with this borderline or emotional dysregulation, which is a better word actually to call it, emotionally unstable, dysregulation. So these children grow up not knowing where they belong, if they belong, who they are. And this is where social media, my friends, becomes a problem. I'm going to go into the third type, but while I'm on this, I want to say, if you find yourself in this category, never having a home, shoved from this one to that one, or whatever it was in your life, and you have no sense of self, no sense of belonging, no sense of anything, you're just terrified and all you want is some stability, but you've never felt stability. You go online, searching for answers. I know this because clients have told me. And the most dangerous thing that happens, in my opinion, with this, is that we find someone who's enlightened person, let's say, accomplished, meaning they're set up, they're not sitting on a pavement like Mahatma Gandhi, they've got a really good, nice place, and they're preaching spirituality. Now that sounds awful, but I've delved into this enough to be able to make such a statement. So for me, personally, don't know about you, if I were going to take spiritual advice, I would rather it be from someone who has nothing and who's talking from experience, because I might have qualifications under my belt. However, they pale in comparison to lived experience of trauma. They really do. You might find this with some therapists that you see. You might think, well, why don't they understand me? Very few therapists will work, or psychologists will work with people who have borderline. Why? Because it's so difficult to understand. And yet, if you go into the science of it, it isn't that difficult to understand. Just put yourself in that person's position. Just imagine for a moment. So when you start scrolling through and you see we are bombarded with self-help people, with self-help books, with do this to do that, and do this to find yourself, and find your zen if you do this, and there are so many. So what happens to the person who has borderline, who feels completely out of place, who feels like they just don't belong here, who doesn't know where they belong? What do you think happens to them? They buy into all of this with a frantic, yes, this is the answer. This is definitely, oh, okay, that didn't work, but this will work. To end up where? Back at stage one. So be careful, please, when you're scrolling through and you see all these apps of promising you this, and just subscribe to that, and that will be fabulous, and da-da-da-da. Know the background of the person who's selling you that, and know how they live, if you can. Because if they're living the life of Riley, be careful, okay? Because it takes experience, it takes lived experience of trauma to understand trauma. So if someone's just studied this in a textbook and they've gone through a few Zen retreats and they're offering you enlightenment and so on, that's a false flag. I'll tell you that right now. These kids don't have any role models, they aren't loved, they're neglected and often abused. These are the ones going from foster home to foster home. They're terrified of where to next. And so they do not experience a happy or normal childhood. For example, their friends may talk about a gift or what gifts they got for their birthday. Now the child that's being shoved around from pillar to post, home to home, doesn't get birthday gifts, perhaps. That brings on a sense of shame. And it just gets worse and worse. And eventually the child is silently screaming, am I safe? Where do I go? Perhaps if I run away, I'll find where I'm meant to be. And that is difficult to outgrow because it goes with you for life. You take yourself with you. So unfortunately, we can't just say, well, I've arrived, I've grown up, this is me. It doesn't work like that. So you have to be able to breathe fire into your tears. And I mean that, because no one's coming to save you. And when you know that, and you find someone that you feel an affinity with, not because of what they're selling, or you've got to feel an affinity. There's too many people on social media who I personally feel, and I'm not judging anyone, I'm saying this because there as many as are great, I think, it's my opinion, there are as many that are not great and actually could cause further trauma to the person with borderline. It's no freaking joke, I'll tell you that. Then we get to the group 3. So the child grows up in a one-parent home, but the parent they live with is unstable, okay? Parent moves them from house to house, city to city, state to state. They never stay at one place for very long. They don't ever have a solid home to call theirs. This is so important for children, to have a home. Just as the child is getting used to the home that the parents found to rent, they're up and moving again. And this continues. So they cannot develop a sense of stability, nor any sense of self. As the question comes up to the child again, where do I belong? Here, we lived at this address for 3 months. Now we are moving 100 kilometers away to that place that I've never been to. Where do I belong? Can you imagine this for yourself? Shame is a constant. Okay, because with the one-parent home, obviously they're living on the poverty line, and the mother or the father, whoever's looking after them, probably getting clothing and food from charity shops as well. All from the church, which also brings in your shame and your feeling of you're not good enough. You're just not good enough. Now, how do you get out of that? Because it becomes your lived experience, becomes your life. That's what you are. You just kind of don't belong anywhere, and doesn't matter where you go, because you know a couple of months you're going to move again. And so there is no constant. Nothing is constant. And that I could say, well, I call this severe BPD as well, and that I could say could be kind of eked not to be so bad if the parent raising the child is stable. If the parent raising the child goes to work, comes home, loves the child, doesn't neglect them, and even if their meals are meager and the clothing isn't fabulous, it doesn't matter, because love is the most effective, it is the strongest, it is the best medication for children that there is. If you talk about medication as in, how do I be a good parent? You know, I'm not here to tell you how to be a parent. What I want to say, if anybody who writes on social media the most horrendous things about people with borderline, which should be a crime, it's hate speech. These people are very ill. You don't know what you're talking about. The person with borderline who dumps their partner, this is a big one, and goes no contact. And the partner's like, why the hell did that happen? What did I do wrong? Well, she or he picked up on something, and because they are easily triggered and afraid, they run before the scenario that their mind is playing the emotional memories that they're living on comes back to them. So they'd rather just run before it happens to them. Do you see what I mean? So if you have borderline or emotionally unstable disorder, because it's an emotional instability, or if your partner has just upped and left you, think about what could have triggered that. Don't immediately rush to she or he is such a piece of BS and so selfish, and try look at yourself and see, just gently, what did I do to cause this? Can I fix it? Because I guarantee you that people with borderline want to be loved. They want to be wanted. They don't want people to reject them because that's all they've ever known. So when someone with BPD ups and leaves, you can be sure something's triggered them and they're afraid, they're terrified. And I hope you can take that in, because I really don't like the nasty vitriol that continues on the internet from people who don't even know each other. It isn't necessary. The world is so screwed already. Why keep it up? It's the same as soldiers who go to war. And I'm going to just say this. They're killing people they've never met on the orders of old men. Or women. Probably mostly men. It's tragic. Yeah, maybe borders need to be protected and whatnot, sure. But we all know, and I'm not going to get political, but there's many that aren't actually okay. So you got to think about it in terms of that, as in there's enough going on. Why make it worse? Why? Just try and be love. And if you have borderline and you're struggling with it, you're welcome to contact me for help. I coach, counsel. I do the two together now. It works better, trust me. And my email address is below. Just send me an email. Let me know. We'll have a Zoom session together and let me see if I can help you. Because this is not a disorder that you have to live with for the rest of your life that is destroying your mind. Right? And stop taking stuff off social media that you think might help you. I understand the desperate need for just let me belong. Just let me feel like I belong somewhere. Who am I? Give me a sense. Who am I? But that's not going to help you find it. And the constant sort of letdown after you've tried that, it's a letdown. Then you try that, and again it doesn't work. And then again you will start thinking, it's your fault. Must be my fault, because this person looks very sort of wealthy and they're famous. Yeah. How? You work it out. Just be kind, okay? And if you have borderline, you can get through it. You just need someone who understands the disorder, the illness. It's a severe illness. And it's not okay to call people terrible names because they're mentally ill. That's very weak in character, if I must say so. So with that, I wish you a good day. Next week, I'm going to be interviewing somebody on her bipolar and her journey with it. It should be very good. So look out for that one. Otherwise, subscribe, like, and share. Thanks for joining me. I'm Deborah Lang.